I've got my red robe on, so let's review. I've got my red robe on, so let's review. I've got my red robe on, I'm gonna say who's right or wrong. I've got my red robe on, so let's review. Good evening, good evening, good evening, YouTubers and all the views and social media platforms that this is addressing today. How y'all doing? It's so glorious to see each and every one of you all on today. So, this is the Red Robe Review. This is the Red Robe Review where I discuss... Did I do my show today, girl? This is the Red Robe Review where I review and discuss content that resonates with me. Whether it be a video, a situation, a scenario, just anything that I want to discuss that resonates with me. And again, it's your boy D. To some, that's Dwayne. To some, that's Diesel. And to the family, that's the D. That's only for the family. Welcome to the Red Robe Review. So today, I would like to discuss that Detroit male judge, I don't even want to really say his name, that put that young teenage girls in handcuffs and a jail uniform because she was falling asleep in the courtroom. And he definitely felt disrespected. So, when she was falling asleep, I do believe he may have kind of addressed her or asked her to wake up, and she responded to him in a very irritable kind of a way. And at that point, he decided to teach her a lesson and have her treated like a criminal and take her to, wherever to put on a jail uniform and to put on cuffs and, come before him and do the whole nine. Now, the issue with this is that she was a student that was on a field trip. So she should have never, no matter what she did, she should have never been given that kind of a response because of the fact that she wasn't even an everyday citizen that wanted to come and watch a trial. She kind of was somewhat obligated to be there, if you will. And she came to try to learn things or what have you. Now, I do want to say there is a such thing as proper decorum and proper behavior while you are in a courtroom. And I think the purpose of the field trip or what have you was to kind of maybe introduce the students to that and to teach those things to them or what have you. So falling asleep in a courtroom is not okay. That is a form of, disrespect to the court, which means to the judge. And you are to be addressed if that is the case. Now, the fact that she was addressed was not necessarily the issue, but the way that she was dressed, it was very, very telling. And it just goes to show you that certain minorities that do sit in higher up positions, they don't necessarily take special care of those that are a bit more or less fortunate than them. They don't always have the best patience with them. They don't always have the best diligence for them. And to a certain extent, I don't know if he would have treated her any differently from how a judge that was racist would have treated her. And it's a bit unfortunate. The proper thing to do was to ask that young lady to step outside of the courtroom and then meet with her outside of the courtroom or in your chambers and ask why, is she sleeping or why hasn't she gotten enough rest? That would have been the proper thing to do. I'm not saying he should not have addressed her sleeping at all. You definitely should have addressed the sleeping, but if it was going to be addressed to a point where it bothered you, you should have just asked her to step outside of the courtroom. And even if she did give you some kind of back and forth pushback, you should have still asked her to step outside of the courtroom and let the adults that brought her there address her first, and then you go in and you try to maybe address her, and build a compassionate style of a relationship with her. But that judge said that he felt very disrespected in his courtroom. And I think that disrespect can be subjective to a certain extent. There is a such thing as an abuse of power, and there is a such thing as power tripping. And sometimes judges talk to people like they're the absolute everything, like they are the end all be all. And I get it to a certain extent within their courtroom. They do have a lot of power, but you don't have to be abusive with that power. It was no reason for you to put that young lady in a jail uniform. It was no reason for you to handcuff that young lady. All of that was uncalled for. Now, yes, you could have addressed her attitude, and you could have given her a breakdown on proper courtroom decorum, but she was not there to be treated like a criminal. She was there for a learning experience. And to try to turn that learning experience into some type of scared straight tactic was a bit excessive. And since then, that young lady has been traumatized, and she had to go home and let her mother know. And her mother was actually traumatized, and her mother decided to express her complaints. And now that judge has been removed from the bench for further training. I don't know if he'll be allowed to come back, or if he's going to be permanently removed, but you've been removed from the bench. And I just think that this should be a lesson, and this should be a wake-up call, to people, including myself, to people that are in positions of power. You just can't handle people any kind of way and do anything that you want to do with people, especially when you haven't done your due diligence to get to know the scenario for its full value. Again, he is an attorney because of the fact that he's sitting in that judge seat. So, being that he's an attorney, he knows very, very, very well how to play prosecutor, and he knows very well how to play defense. So all we got from him was the prosecuting side. We didn't get a portion of him that was somewhat defensive towards that young lady. And that to me would have been the probing questions. Why are you sleeping today, young lady? Did you get enough sleep last night, or did you not get any sleep at all last night? And had he would have just asked that question, it could have really, really been what I would have thought would have been the start of a beautiful mentoring relationship between the two people. But instead, it turned into a traumatic experience that young lady will never forget. And now this judge will never forget it, because he is now off the bench for temporarily, or what have you. Now, to me, what makes matters worse is this judge doubled down on his actions. And I think because you doubled down on it, that's possibly what got you removed from the bench, because you actually, in your judicial mind, thought you were correct in what you were doing, and in actuality you were not. Many of your colleagues and legal scholars and legal professors and legal experts disagree with how that scenario was handled. And if it was to the point where you were removed from the bench, that definitely means that you did something incorrectly. So again, I don't know who's training or who's empowering everyone, but again, we have to make sure that, especially in the judicial branch, we have checks and balances. We just have to. Judges should not just be able to do and say whatever they want to say. And from my understanding, by law, they cannot just do and say whatever they want to say, even when they are correcting people, even when they are, educating people, or even when they're issuing punishment towards people. There's a wonderful judge here in Texas, Judge Stephanie Boyd, who to me just does absolutely wonderful. If you've never seen her, channel, please go take a look at it. But that lady that judge, I'm sorry, not say lady, I'm sorry, judge. That judge, in my opinion, deals with so many top intensive crimes and so many people, criminals who have done atrocious things, and she still handles them with dignity, respect, decorum, and I just would not have, I could not have imagined her handling that young lady, in that way. And the man was absolutely wrong. And again, we have to understand that our legal experts, whether they are black, white, same race as us, opposite race as us, Indian, Asian, whatever the case may be, their number one responsibility is to the law. And if you are a minority, the law in most cases may not be in your favor. So there are times when even people who are in your race or in the same minority space as you, once they make it to a certain status, they view you as if, you're not, as if your background and where you come from is not necessarily what should be important. But what should be important is that you are trying to overcome that, and you are trying to be above that, and you're trying to go and do, better than what your circumstances are. And sometimes with that perspective, the empathy is missing, the understanding is missing, and this I pulled myself up by the bootstraps mentality, that everybody's not able to do that same way. Everybody doesn't look up the same way. Everybody doesn't have the same outcome, even when they do put in the work. There are plenty of people who, just like you, Judge, went to law school and put in work, this, that, and third, but had stiflings and had issues throughout their career. So, you have to be grateful to the space that you are in, and you have to use that gratefulness for the space and place that you're in to have grace and show grace to someone else. And for you to treat a non-criminal in this way, I can only imagine how you treat criminals. And I hate this for you because, again, you are another brother, and this was a little black child, and you could have really, really done something positive and made a positive impact, but instead you traumatized her. And for what? Nobody is slapping you on the back saying you did a good job. Not, at least not nobody with any common sense. And again, I'm not a legal expert. So maybe there is some type of room for this or some type of room for that. But the way that I see it, it was completely wrong. It was an abuse of power. And you traumatized that young lady. You really did. And you need to apologize publicly, first and foremost. You need to publicly apologize to her because you publicly embarrassed her. And you also need to provide some type of financial compensation because you told that young lady that you were going to be in your bed and she wasn't going to be in hers, and come to find out she don't even have a bed to sleep in or a stable home to be in. And that is where you missed the mark, sir, because again, you didn't do your due diligence. You took your prosecuting mentality instead of your defensive mentality, and you were imbalanced. And again, we have to have people in power and systems in power to, that provide checks and balances. We have to be able to provide checks and balances to people that are in powerful positions, whether that's people that are judges, whether that's people that are teachers, whether that's people that are, CEOs of companies, whether that's a customer service representative, whether that's someone that's a nurse. Again, show grace. Do not abuse your power because it can be given to you and it can be taken away. And as I minister to each and every one of you, I am ministering to myself. Red Robe Review.